Welcome to Chapter 6. The first part of this chapter will cover different multinational strategies that companies can employ when expanding globally. The second part of this chapter will look at different entry mode strategies in terms of how a multinational can enter a new market. Multinational managers face complex strategic issues, and they have to select an appropriate strategy that will help them balance local responsiveness with global integration, what is referred to as the local global dilemma in international management. In this chapter, we'll discuss 4 different strategic choices: the international strategy, the regional strategy, the multi-domestic, and the transnational strategy. Each one of those 4 strategies responds to the local global dilemma in a different way. In the second part of the chapter, we'll look at different entry modes. How do multinationals enter new markets? The different approaches include exporting, licensing, international strategic alliances, and foreign direct investments. We'll look at the 4 different modes of entry, their strengths and weaknesses, as well as the risks involved with each. Before we discuss the 4 strategies, let's look in a bit more detail at the global-local dilemma. Pressures to respond to the unique needs of consumers in a particular market in each country or each region is local responsiveness. Local responsiveness means that a multinational adapts its products or services to the needs of the consumers in the particular host country or particular region in terms of pricing, packaging, advertising, or other decisions. Global integration is the degree to which a multinational pressures for efficiency that de-emphasize local differences and conduct businesses in a similar way throughout the world. Global integration means we are going to strive as multinationals for global products that are sold to a global market with minimal, if any, adjustments for local needs. The 4 strategies that we'll cover in this chapter are the multi-domestic, transnational, international, and regional strategies. The multi-domestic strategy ranks highest on local responsiveness. This is a strategy that's most appropriate for multi-domestic products, fashion, for example, where great importance is given to adhering to local preferences and local tastes. The transnational strategy is the one that is most globally integrated, in which an organization develops or produces global products for a global market. For example, semiconductors or airplanes, which are a global industry. The international and the regional strategies are compromise approaches that seek to balance local responsiveness with global integration. It's important to remember that these 4 strategies are general descriptions, and few multinationals, if any, will adopt them in their purest form. Many multinationals will have more than one business, maybe more than one product line in one or more industries, and they may use different strategies for each unit. Even single business firms may change their strategies to adopt and adjust to product differences. It's also important to acknowledge that governmental regulations and the cost of switching strategies will or might prevent full integration of any given strategy. The multi-domestic strategy seeks to offer products or services that are uniquely configured for local customers. This strategy is highest on local responsiveness. It might adjust its products, its advertising, the sales outlets that it's using, or even its pricing to local needs and demands. This strategy emphasizes local responsiveness. Of course, as a result of local responsiveness and unique offerings across different markets, this means that products or services might cost more to produce, which might result in higher prices, so as to recoup these costs. For example, your textbook gives the example of Walmart's failure in the South Korean market, because Walmart was not locally responsive enough to respond to local consumer needs in this market. Koreans seek quality, not lowest cost, and Walmart failed to deliver this and exited the market after 10 years. It was replaced by a local grocery store chain called Tesco that was able to give Korean consumers what they wanted: higher quality, not necessarily lower prices. The transnational strategy ranks the highest on global integration. In this strategy, multinationals seek to produce products or services in a uniform way with uniform marketing for a global market. Multinationals do so in two ways. First, they seek location advantages. This means that in the transnational strategy, the multinational will disperse value chain activities, upstream or downstream activities, wherever it can be done the most efficiently, cheapest, for example. The second aspect is gaining economic efficiencies by operating worldwide with a global platform to perform value chain activities. The emphasis in this strategy is on global integration, and all value chain activities will be located whenever and wherever it is most cost efficient, factoring in quality considerations as well. For example, a multinational might choose to locate research and development in India because this location offers access to highly educated English-speaking software engineers who are less expensive than their peers in developed nations. A multinational using a transnational strategy might decide to place manufacturing in countries where labor costs are low and assemble final products near their customers. When employing the transnational strategy, multinationals have to ensure that dispersing value chain activities globally based on efficiency and quality considerations is beneficial enough to offset higher control and coordination costs. In a globally dispersed organization, there are going to be more costs to coordinate and control various operations. It's also important to remember that labor costs are rising even in developing nations like China, and multinationals are sometimes relocating productions to their home countries to be closer to customers because the advantage of lower cost labor is slowly disappearing. The international strategy is a compromise approach in the global-local dilemma. With this strategy, organizations seek to produce and sell uniform products and sell those products with similar marketing approaches worldwide. The focus is on global products with minimal adjustment to local taste. But different from the transnational approach, with the international strategic approach, all value chain activities are located in the home market, same place as headquarters. Both upstream and support activities remain in the home country. This strategy allows multinationals to gain more economies of scale from locating all value chain activities in the same country. Research and development, manufacturing, sales, everything is located in the home country, which reduces the costs of coordination and control incurred in the transnational approach. The regional strategy is also a compromise strategy in the global-local dilemma. This regional strategy is like the international strategy, but not on a worldwide basis, but rather on a regional basis. With this strategic approach, a multinational will manage raw material sourcing, production, research and development, marketing, and all support activities within a particular region, whereas in the international approach, this will happen in the home country. In the regional approach, the multinational seeks to gain economic advantages from regional networks. There will be relative uniformity within regions. This approach is facilitated by regional trading blocs like the European Union or the North American Free Trade Agreement, also known as NAFTA. This strategy balances the economic efficiency and location advantages of the transnational and international strategies with some of the local adaptation of the multi-domestic strategy. Value chain activities will be located within one region. And as uniformity within regions is rising, it allows multinationals some cost savings, but also enough flexibility to be responsive to unique customer needs within a particular region. So how would a multinational select a strategy? A multinational has to select a strategy that is most suitable to its own characteristics. Organizations that have competitive advantage in upstream activities, like research and development, for example, and operate in highly competitive global industries, would benefit from using a transnational or international strategy. If those companies have more expertise with downstream value chain activities, the regional strategy would offer a better compromise. If a company has downstream competitive strength, for example, aftermarket service, the regional strategy allows some of the economies of scale in centralized purchasing and uniform products in upstream activities. For companies that have upstream competitive advantages but operate in less globally integrated industries, but rather industries with higher pressures for local responsiveness, the regional strategy might be more suitable. For a company with upstream competitive strength like research and development, the regional strategy will allow some downstream adaptation of products to regional differences. If an organization has strength in downstream activities like aftermarket service and operates in an industry with high pressures for local responsiveness, a multi-domestic strategy might be most suitable. Again, no strategy is perfect, and each organization has to select the strategy that is most suitable to support its strength. A transnational strategy will be preferred over an international strategy when the benefits of dispersing activities worldwide offsets the costs of coordination and control. A transnational strategy will create a more complex organization that is dispersed globally, and this will mean higher costs for coordination and control. And so the benefits of dispersing value chain activities worldwide has to be larger than the cost of coordinating and controlling the different aspects or elements of such a complex organization. The international strategy would be preferable over the transnational when the cost savings of centralization offset the lower cost of higher quality raw materials and labor from worldwide locations. So if we can save money by reducing the need for coordination and control because we locate all value chain activities in the home country, as is aligned with the international strategy, this would be the preferred strategy if the benefit to be gained by less complexity and lower coordination and control costs is higher than lower cost or higher quality raw materials or lower cost labor that we can gain from using an transnational strategy and dispersing value chain activities worldwide. The strategic choice that an organization is going to make is going to depend on the degree to which it operates in a global industry or a more domestic industry. There are some questions that leaders of multinationals can ask themselves to determine whether they should favor a transnational or an international strategy by looking at the level of globalization in their industry. The first set of questions apply to the different markets. Are we operating in a global market? Are there common customer needs? And indeed, customer needs worldwide are converging. More and more customers seek similar products and services. Do we have global customers? This typically applies to business customers like PC components. And indeed, there are global customers in the computer industry. And can you transfer marketing? This is not always true. Coca-Cola, for example, is one brand that is known to use the same marketing campaigns worldwide, but this is not always possible for all multinationals. If marketing is transferable, we can use a transnational strategy. If we have common customer needs and global customers, again, we can use a transnational strategy. The second set of questions applies to costs. Are there global economies of scale? In some industries, like disposable syringes, that's an example from your textbook, in order to be profitable and have economies of scale, companies have to sell globally to be price competitive. And so we are leaning towards a global product. Are there cheaper sources of low-cost raw materials? If there is a source of low-cost materials, companies may want to take advantage of that. If not, then it is better to produce at home to save on transportation costs. So if the answer to this question is yes, we would lean towards a transnational strategy. If the answer to this question is no, then an international strategy would be more beneficial since we would be saving on transportation costs and sourcing raw materials close to home. The last question in terms of costs refers to cheaper sources of highly skilled labor. As in with the question regarding raw materials, multinationals are going to produce where the labor is available and lower cost. For example, much of US manufacturing is located in Mexico, and thanks to the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, there are no tariffs for bringing finished goods across the border. And so if there is access to highly skilled labor elsewhere, we might lean towards the transnational strategy. The third set of questions applies to governments. Do the targeted countries have favorable trade policies? Some governments impose import limitations and quotas, as well as subsidies to certain industries. But this is going to differ by industry and product. Regional trade agreements will lower tariffs and quotas among member nations, which is why a lot of the US manufacturing is taking place in Mexico, thanks to NAFTA eliminating tariffs of bringing goods across the US-Mexico borders. When such tariffs exist, you might opt for the international strategy and produce at home and thus avoid the tariffs of moving goods across borders. The second question is, do the target countries have regulations that restrict operations? For example, some countries will have restrictions on foreign ownership and might limit multinationals' ability to employ a transnational strategy. The last question applies to competition or the competitive marketplace. It's important for multinationals to consider what strategies their competitors are using. If a company is using a multi-domestic strategy, but its competitors are using an international or a transnational strategy, this company has to adjust. For example, Xerox in the 1980s operated using a multi-domestic or a regional approach in which it treated 3 parts of the world as separate markets, Americas, Europe, Middle East, and Asia Pacific. Its competitors, Canon and Ricoh, used international or transnational strategies, producing uniform global products for the global market, and were able to operate much leaner and be very fierce competitors to Xerox, which had to change its strategic approach and use a different strategy, a more globally integrated strategy, in order to compete and survive. The last question refers to the volume of imports and exports in the industry. High volume imports or exports suggest that there's a benefit to a more global strategy. Again, there is no perfect strategy. The strategy choice depends on the industry and the individual organization's interests.